Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on Toned In Entertainment, where we love pop culture. Today, it's time for a retro video game review. Now, watching baseball in the late 80s and the early 90s definitely for me was the pinnacle of Major League Baseball. We had awesome athletes like Frank Thomas, Bo Jackson, my personal favorite baseball player of all time, Don Mattingly, Roger Clemens, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds. The list can go on and on. And here in Miami, we had the expansion of the Florida Marlins, and watching the Atlanta Braves was essentially like watching an all-star team every single night. Now, in addition to having awesome Major League Baseball on television, we also had video games that came out, and while some were good and some were bad for the Nintendo and Super Nintendo in particular, there was one video game that definitely stood out to me. Now, 29 years later, is this video game still fun to go and play from time to time? Well, let's take a look back at Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball, released in 1994. Now, right off the bat, we have the official team names for all 28 Major League teams back in 1994. But the one thing that is missing is the player names, as the only player to be named here is, of course, Ken Griffey Jr. himself. Thankfully, the creators not only gave us the ability to edit the names of the players in here, but they did a really great job of making them look like their real-life counterparts, at least for the most part. Each player also came with a set of ratings that included batting, power, speed, and defense. Now, while the first three make sense, when it comes to defense, there are no errors in this game, and the defense actually translates to how hard they can throw the ball while out in the field. So for example, if you have someone like Yankees first baseman Don Mattingly, who has a 9 for defense, it doesn't make much sense to keep him at first base. So I would switch him over to shortstop, where he's more effective, at least here in this game. Now, as far as the pitchers go, they have 3 ratings that include speed, control, and fatigue. For the most part, your starting pitcher can carry you through most of the game. However, if he does give up a bunch of hits and is out there for too long, he will start huffing and puffing on the mound, and that's when it becomes more likely for him to start giving up a lot of hits. Now, if you're looking for a baseball simulator, you're definitely in the wrong place, because Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball is pure arcade fun. Now, if I was to compare it to any other sports games, I would say think of it as the Tecmo Super Bowl of the Major League Baseball world, except here in this game, you don't have to worry about those nasty injuries. The game comes with 4 modes, ranging from single game to All-Star to World Series, and yes, you can actually even play an entire 162 game season here as well. With each game taking about 15 to 20 minutes to play, it will take you some time to take your favorite franchise to the playoffs. But when you're knocking them out of the park and racking up those stats, it'll be just a lot of fun in the process. Now, while I do find myself winning a majority of the games, it always feels like the tide can turn at any point. And while the AI can be competitive, it never feels like it cheats either. Now, speaking of cheating, you as the player do have the ability to play a little dirty when it comes to pitching, as you're able to slow the pitches down and make them go outside of the strike zone. And if you have a pitcher with a high control rating, it's going to be the computer that will have a hard time getting its runners on base. But in my opinion, this technique would get very boring, so my advice, throw them over the plate and make sure the game stays on an even playing field. The game does come with a soundtrack that plays throughout the entire game, and after the hundreds of games that I've played, it not only never gets old, but fits this game perfectly. In addition to the music, the umpire sounds are great as well, whether it's calling strikes or calling a runner out after a double play. He's out. There's also a lot of attention to detail here, especially for a Super Nintendo game, with great character models, to some batters blowing bubblegum at the plate, to the details of iconic baseball parks. There's definitely a lot of care that was put into this game. Now, not only was this game so much fun back in the day, but to me, not only is it fun today, but still, if anybody asks me what my favorite baseball video game of all time, there's not a close second, as the original Ken Griffey Jr. baseball still knocks it out of the park. Now, I do say original because I know there are other Ken Griffey Jr. baseball games, but honestly, I don't remember it making much of an impression. But I might be inclined to fire it up one day and give it another shot. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball on the Super Nintendo a 9.9 out of 10.
Oh, come on!
Okay, you're right. Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball on the Super Nintendo definitely deserves a 10 out of 10. The gameplay, the music, the ambiance, and the attention to detail is all here to make this a super fun experience whether I win or lose each and every time. And the only thing cheap you'll find in this game is in the player's hand and not in the computer's, which usually wasn't the case at this time. Alright guys, now what are your thoughts on Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball for the Super Nintendo? Comment down below. Still my favorite baseball game of all time, and I had an absolute blast just playing this game over and over again. It's something I wish I had time to play another season with, because I would take those Yankees and play the whole 162 game season again if I just had the time to do so. But we got to get on to other retro video games. So guys, if you like these retro video game reviews, there are more coming here in the future, and we're going to go wrestling in the next video. So guys, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.